Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to look at McSweeney's Quarterly Concern, number 13. Now McSweeney's is a literary journal. I think it's still going on. I'm not sure. It was the brainchild of author Dave Eggers. And they always seem to be a little comic friendly. They'd have spot illustrations by Charles Burns and Chris Ware and things like that. But for this 13th issue, they let Chris Ware edit the whole issue, and it's all comics. Well, mostly all comics. It's quite an amazing anthology. This came out in 2004, and this is just worth the price of admission alone. Is this dust jacket by Chris Ware? Let's check this out. This is gonna blow your mind. This thing is amazing. So it's a complete fold out. See, it's got these flaps here. Oh, it also comes with 2 mini comics, which we'll look at later. So this thing, I'm going to try to show you piecemeal, because I don't think I can zoom out enough for it. And I believe, let's start here. Yeah, this is the front, I think. So, okay. It's kind of hard to open this. So first of all, just look at the production values of this. This like beautiful like gold filigree. This amazing retro, beautiful design by Chris Ware. We see some of it down here too. And this is just a whole bunch of comic strips from Chris Ware. Unfortunately, it's his bubble body phase, which I guess is Chris Ware's style now, still, I think, for the most part. And I'm really not a fan of the bubble body stuff that Chris Ware does. Ever since he's been doing these, I've definitely cooled on his comics. They're still great, though. He's still a great writer. And we start off with God. And God is looking at all of his creation and realizing that comics was one of the great things humanity ever made. And so he has all these ruminations on comics, and we see these other comics that don't have God in them. God, look at this beautiful logo he makes for it. Chris Ware just is insane to me. Like, this front cover just seems like it would take weeks to make. So much attention to detail and craft. It's just beautiful. So I'll show you the bottom now. Let's see if I can, I think that's in there. So now we see more of these comics, and we see the normal people down here. So God makes it so that comics are totally beloved by everyone. It's this weird alternate reality he creates. Now let's look at the back. Sorry, guys. If you can't take me coughing, I'd stop watching now. I'm still pretty sick, but I have nothing going on in my life right now. I've been stuck at home, so if I don't make these videos, I'm gonna kill myself. So I got nothing to live for except for this. So sorry, I'll be coughing. But and now we see more of these comics, all kind of related to comic books and things like that. More of this beautiful gold filigree. We have horoscopes even. Let me see if this is getting in the frame right. Horoscopes. We see a word jumble. How to draw God as a bubble body, so it's not that hard. And just more great logos. So nice. Now, as if that wasn't enough, when you open this up, I did it upside down. This is so amazing, guys. Gary Panter drew this amazing panoramic here. I just have to do this in quarters. Let me get down here. This amazing panoramic thing of like, it's almost like the history of comics, but even art. We even see things from classic paintings. But on the sides here, this very fine print here, which very nice font, by the way. This is biographies of all the contributors, and really well done. So we just see all these random Gary Panter cartoons here, but as we get in, we see more specific stuff. We see Bosch here, Garden of Earthly Delights, but then we start seeing comic characters. Let me make sure I'm in camera here, or in frame. Alley Oop. We see Trash Man, S. Clay Wilson's Pirates, R. Crumb and Aileen, Freak Brothers. We see Mickey Rat even, Kaz, Underworld, Little Zippy. This is so much fun to look at. Kim Deitch, Matt Groening. He just shouts out to almost every cartoon you can think of. Now I'll switch it over here. Okay, let me make sure we're in here. And here's the other top quarter. Astro Boy. And now I'll go down to this quarter. Make sure you can see it. He even has pictures of dinosaurs. So the theme is a little broad. It seems like he just drew whatever he wanted to draw. Day of the Dead characters. There's what's his name? Happy Hooligan. I love this one. Let me get this in frame. I love this one of Batman representing Batman. It's just this swirl of capes. And that famous detective cover or Batman cover where Batman and Robin are up against that brick wall with the spotlight. But it's just like these weird generic characters. Little Nemo, Nancy. You can pick them all out yourself. Hopefully you can see this okay. But this is just, oh man. I should get a second copy of this and put this up on my wall. This is a great poster. So, oh, and look, there's even a little gold thing in the middle here. A little more of that gold foil. So let's wrap this up here. Uh-oh, I hope this doesn't take too long. Let's see. Sorry, let's take a second. Okay, so now let's look at the actual book. This is a beautiful production, hardcover. It's just the production values, more of this gold foil with this amazing, intricate design. This is a 1930s how to draw cartoons type pamphlet. And I'll give you the exact information when we see it inside. But I thought that was a good choice for this book, the book cover. More of that gold foil. Just a beautiful book. McSweeney's always was like that with their production values. We have this great end papers by Ivan Brunetti. Once again, you can spend, a long time checking out all the characters, the little girl from Family Circus. Even characters that aren't necessarily comic characters, but they're cartoons, like Mr. Peanut, the Planters guy, Marvin the Martian from the animated cartoons, Snuffy Smith, Plastic Man, Nancy, Dennis the Menace, Andy Cap, Asterix. There's a Spider-Man in here somewhere, but I can't find it. Mouse. Oh, there's Spider-Man. It's kind of fun seeing Ivan Brunetti with this cute little kid style drawing all these characters. I like the checkerboard effect too. Very attractive. Has a little book plate even. This book belongs to. And we have a little title here, title page. And we even get like an interior cover here. It's beautiful Charles Burns drawing. I think I've seen this before, but I don't remember where. But I doubt he drew this for McSweeney's. A lot of this stuff is sourced from other areas. It's basically Chris Ware was cherry picking the cartoons comics that have already existed. So that is a downside to this collection as far as anthologies go. A lot of his stuff you've seen before, or excerpts from things. But just another great logo from Ware too. That just looks so good to me. I like this, the contents page. He repurposed an old novelty gag ad. And this is interesting because I was in a band. The guitarist was Jason Willis. this great graphic designer. And he did this on one of our albums. I'm sorry. It was a compilation album he did the graphics for. And he totally had this idea 10 years earlier where, he'd show the onion gum guy and it would say the band in the song. So this is the same idea. Onion gum guy, page 42, Mills Gross. But all of this is repurposed, like he changes all the text. So it looks just like those ads, but it's all telling you about this McSweeney's. Now we have the main title page here. We get a David Heatley comic on it. I don't know if this was made for McSweeney's. We've, so that binding plates, that thing on the cover, that's a guy named E.D. Munchow from a 1936 How to Cartoon instructional course. We have a preface by Ira Glass from NPR, and pretty good. We have a photo here of Frank King and Sidney Smith, two of the most popular cartoonists from Chicago. I think this is from like 1912. We have an introduction by Chris Ware. They have a quote from Vladimir Nabokov where he says, Dennis the Menace doesn't look like his father. Could he be illegitimate? I never thought of that. He doesn't look a thing like his dad. So not only do you get this really well-written introduction by Chris Ware, but then he gives us another comics, a history, and it continues on every page. And these are just, we see ancient Sumer, we see Greek civilization, all the way up through the Norman conquest, broadsides, altarpieces, sequential narrative, the Passion of the Christ. We even see Rudolf Topfer creating what we think of as comics now. And basically all these things that contributed to the whole idea of sequential narrative. Even Edward Muybridge, the photographer, who did those famous horses in sequence photos. Really well written. I always forget, Chris Ware's such a genius cartoonist. He's a really good writer. He's just a very interesting, just a very, very good. We have a little Seth comic here where it's called My Day, where he talks about his typical day as a cartoonist. And now we have P. Mondrian, Paris 1920 by Ivan Brunetti. I like this, how he actually makes it look like a Mondrian painting with the segmented cubes of different colors, the bright colors. And this is the first of three that we'll see in here. I'm pretty sure these are from Schizo, Ivan Brunetti's one-man anthology, because he did a lot of these, profiling famous artists and musicians. Just basically, it's not like an autobiography. It's just taking quotes of things they said. Kind of interesting, and it's that new, cute Ivan Brunetti style. I kind of miss the old Ivan Brunetti, the scumbag, but I really do like his new style. It's just such nice cartooning. It's just a great little style he's developed for himself. The unbearable tediousness of being. This is a great R. Crumb comic, and I believe it says 2003, so maybe this was made just for this. And this is a great one, just about this, pathetic little guy on a blind date. He doesn't have a chance in the world. He's just this sweating, kind of self-hating weirdo. So we get both of their thoughts, not his thoughts, her thoughts. And she's just like, oh my God, this guy's pathetic. I got to get rid of him. It's so sad. It's so well observed. Just, it's so real, unfortunately. It's sadly all too real. Just how clueless this guy is. But also we see the woman's point of view of just fuck, I hate men. Men suck. And just beautifully drawn, as you can see. It's really nice. Here's the Darlington Sundays. And this is by Dan Clowes. And I don't know if this was made for the book, or maybe this is from 8-Ball. I gotta say, not the best foot forward for Dan Clowes, considering this might be the first time anyone sees him. This McSweeney's is obviously reaching a different audience than your average comic would. And just a really kind of slapdash Dan Clowes art. Very, not his best. And not the best story. It's about these two sisters. Nothing really happens. It's just not one of his better strips. Kind of random to see little bits of dialogue between all these different characters. We have a great article here by Rudolf Topfer, the inventor of comics, and his first appearance in America. So Rudolf Topfer, I believe, the 1840s or something, 1830s, he created kind of the closest thing to what we consider comics. Sequential narrative. It didn't have word balloons, but his original production in Europe, whatever it was called, I probably can't pronounce it, History de Mr. Vilbeau. It became a sensation, and people instantly were attracted to this format, this idea. Because remember, there was no movies, there was no comics. So the idea of pictures that kind of almost felt like they were moving, the reason why we like comics, or people now like comics, this was a new thing. And it kind of took off. And there was many bootleg editions of it. And he made a few sequels, he made a few other comics, but other people started copying him. And they call this now the Victorian Age of Comics, pre-Yellow Kid. Because, I didn't know about any of this until 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. I just always thought, yep, Yellow Kid, the first comic. And this is obviously comics. You can't deny it. So here's a reprint, at least partial, of the American version, which was translated into English, The Adventures of Mr. Obadiah Oldbuck. This was the cover. As you can imagine, this is a very beat-up edition. There's not many. There's no mint copies of this, I don't think. Also, this wasn't colored. This copy, that whoever owned it, they colored it themselves. Random panels. So as you can see, the art's pretty crude, but it's pretty effective. It's pretty good. And no word balloons, but, it tells you what's going on in the panel below. And Obadiah Oldbuck is in love with this woman, and he spends the comic trying to woo her. But as you can see, we definitely have sequentiality. He goes from panel to panel. He gets kind of bored, but he actually tries to kill himself. He tries to hang himself, but the rafter falls off the ceiling. And then he's running around with this rafter tied to his neck. The humor is kind of weird, because, it's 1840, so there's not much stuff from that time that I think anyone would find funny. They probably wouldn't find our stuff funny either, what we think is funny. I believe this whole thing, graphic novella, is reprinted in an issue of Comic Art magazine, that wonderful magazine that was around 10, 15 years ago. I think I have that issue somewhere. It's the whole thing, because I think it is way longer than this. So here's one of the guys that picked up this idea, John McClellan. This is from an issue of Harper's from 1859. So, this is complete sequential narrative, even though it's no word balloons, before the Civil War. So it's just so weird that for decades, everyone was like, no, Yellow Kid's the first comic. That doesn't even have sequentiality. A lot of those Hogan's Alleys are just a big panorama of a bunch of characters chatting, and doing silly things. This is also very obviously this guy read Obadiah Oldbuck. This guy tries to hang himself, the rafter falls off. And this guy keeps trying to kill himself very ineptly. He attempts to cut his throat with a bar of soap. This is actually kind of funny in a sick way. He tries to get poisoned, but instead he gets he takes one of those medicine show type things, which is basically alcohol. And then he feels better about himself. So after that, whenever he's depressed, he drinks a bottle of Dr. Dips and shoots his own daguerreotype. That actually is pretty funny. We have an original Mutt and Jeff strip. I don't know why, but it's cut up into, it's enlarged and embiggened and turned into 4 pages. Kind of typical, you know, gag. Bud Fisher. We have a really great little article by John Updike called Cartoon Magic. John Updike, when he was a young man, really wanted to be a cartoonist. He studied and really worked at it for years, all the way up to college. He was in the Harvard Lampoon. So this is a little biographical sketch he wrote, an autobiographical sketch in 1999, and they put it in here. These are some of his cartoons. Apparently there's hundreds of them. He would contribute like 10 cartoons an issue to Harvard Lampoon. Even before that in high school, he did cartoons for the school paper. Really great article. Just him talking about the passion he had for like learning every new trick, how to crosshatch, or when he learned about, backlighting and stuff. All the little tricks that cartoonists use. So it's a really good article. So I do got to say, I feel whenever they do an anthology like this that's crossing over to the general public, they always have to put in like articles to kind of seduce people, intellectuals, into thinking, oh, well, John Updike's in here. But I'd rather have more comics. It's a great article, but give me 3 more pages of some great cartoonist. Here we have Milt Gross. I won't say a word about William Faulkner's novel, The Wild Palms. I assume this was a running feature where he would look at a current novel and adapt it with his zany madcap style. No words, just with all these little tiny panels. So this is supposedly the plot of the whole novel. I've never read Wild Palms. I don't know how much he changes it, but it does look pretty zany. Some of this I can't imagine is in William Faulkner's book. But this is, I believe, like the 30s? 1939. I'd like to read more of these. I don't even really know what's going on. But it's just, I love his style. It just looks funny. He's like one of those cartoonists. You just look at his stuff. It looks so quick and like he just dashed it off. That's just what his style was. But it adds this total fun, kinetic energy to all of his drawings. This is the cover of Circulation magazine. King Features Syndicate used to send this to their subscribing newspapers. This is from 1926. And this is the magic carpet of comics, basically saying, if you want to increase circulation, you got to put more comics in your paper. Look at this amazing drawing. I think they tell us who drew this, but I'm not sure. Let's see if they... a guy named Louis Biderman. So I don't know. I've never heard that name. And then they interrupt this for a second to show 12 samples of Underworld comedy by Kaz. So these are just reprints of 12 of Kaz's Underworld strips. So this might be new, this beautiful, fun drawing he did for this book. And so we see Underworld. I gotta get some of these Underworld collections. I don't own any. I really like Kaz's stuff. These are funny as hell. They're really kind of all very gross type humor. Here's an example of the kind of humor. Here's Snuff. I got a present for both of us. A naked photo of you. How is this for the both of us? Well, you know how I love to pose naked, and I know how much you love to masturbate. The guy's chasing after him. This girl's crying because there's the last unicorn in existence. And months later, he says, "Hey, little girl, there's been a miracle. The last of the unicorns has given birth." And we can see that it looks like half unicorn, half Snuff, this guy. So we obviously fucked the unicorn. Oh my God, this one. Smoking Cat. A new Zippo war protest lighter. And it's a Buddhist monk who douses himself with gasoline so you can light your cigarette. So I'm not going to go through all of these. This is a big fat book we got to get through here, but I just love this Kaz cartooning, especially with the colors. This looks so nice to me. Just fun stuff. Yeah, I definitely have to get more of these. The Eunice Snuff Corn comes back. And so this is also from Circulation. And this is such bullshit. It's a doctor, an actual MD, telling us how comic strips are good for your health because of, you know, it lessens anxiety and which cause all these problems, dyspepsia and the croup. You know, stupid old-timey shit. Just total quackery going on here. Kind of a waste of a page. I wish it's a funny concept. They could have just showed us a paragraph to get the idea. Now we get a bunch of Mark Newgarden strips, in particular, The Little Nun. I love these strips. The humor is just so... nobody has a sense of humor like Mark Newgarden. I love the style, this complete, simple, geometric style. But basically every comic is the little nun sees something horrible or does something sinful, and then she piously prays at the end. That's the punchline of every joke. And somehow it's really funny the more you read. On the bottom we have We All Die Alone, a collection of cartoons and jokes by Mark Newgarden. And supposedly you can cut this out and make your own little booklet. And these are his gag strips, which are like anti-humor. You know, like, I'm the new alcoholic in town. They look like typical gag strips. Everyone's got big noses, but they're usually bleak, depressing things. This is just really fun stuff. I just love Mark Newgarden's kind of high concept, low concept combined. I really like these colors too. Really nice. Now we get some examples of Jim Woodring's beautiful stuff. We have a Pup Shaw comic here. God, I love Pup Shaw. It's so fucking cute. I love this weird little Frank strip here, which I assume was originally published bigger, but it actually looks really good as just this tiny, beautifully colored little thing at the bottom. Speaking of beautiful colors, this is... Jim Woodring is probably one of the best colorists who's ever been in comics, and this one is even the apex of anything I've ever seen by him. This is just so gorgeous. Where Were You Last Night? And it's just Frank's looking at the sky. He sees these clouds coalesce into Pup Shaw, and then Pup Shaw appears, materializes, and they walk off. So just complete. Does it really make sense? Something snagged from your subconscious, but man, look how gorgeous that is. Now we have a few Soft Boy strips by Archer Pruitt. And just a very typical Soft Boy humor. He's just this clueless, happy-go-lucky little imp. And in this really seedy, kind of dangerous, nasty world. But you can't, he's basically indestructible, so he doesn't really care. He can afford to be this naive and Pollyanna-ish. Oh, this is really great. I don't know what this is from, or if she did this just for McSweeney's. Linda Barry, 2 questions. The 2 questions being, is this good? Does this suck? So it's Linda Barry talking to us as the reader, telling us how, as an adult in the past, 10 years or whatever, she hasn't been enjoying drawing as much as she used to. She remembers when she was a little girl, making lines on paper gave her a floating feeling. It made her feel like she was both there and not there. Almost this amazing transcendent thing. And she said she noticed that almost every kid seemed to have this ability. That, like how kids will draw like, oh, here's a monster attacking a tank. And it's almost like it's happening. Like they're watching a movie. And they totally get lost in it. They don't think, oh, this tank doesn't look good enough. This sucks. They just love making these marks. So she talks about how as she got older, she kind of got known in school as the good artist. She was more facile than anyone else at drawing. So then she started to get basically standards. And, as she got older, she started agonizing about like, oh, this isn't good enough. This looks like crap. I got to redo it. And she kind of lost that wonderful joy she used to have. So she tells us how she regains this joy she basically tries to access that childlike part of her that's somewhere inside of her. And just to draw for the pure joy of it. And she basically exhorts us all to try it. Like, you know, anyone can do this. It's very inspirational. I saw her talk in Portland a couple of years ago, and she is so inspirational. I think the last 3 of her books are all about, like, basically you can draw even if you suck at drawing. Just do it. She works with people who are of all ages and just says, just do this, just do it. Yes, so it doesn't look great, but it's the joy is in the doing. So I kind of like I like that one. I'm usually not a huge fan of Autobio type stuff, but that was great. This one's a little weird because it's kind of fascinating. Charles Schulz's preliminary drawings. And in 1999, they found some of these sketches that Charles Schulz used for Peanuts, but they're so faint and small. I don't know, it's just like, okay, that's kind of interesting getting to see Charles Schulz, his roughs, but it just looks like nothing really. It's not much. So, this is what they all look like. And it looks like they were retrieved from a garbage bin. Like he crumpled them up. And maybe his children were like, oh, these could be valuable one day. I guess you can kind of see Snoopy there. I guess if you're a hardcore Peanuts person, which I am not, you would, this would definitely be fun to see. But I think there could have been a much better use of those 6 pages. So now we have an excerpt by Chris Ware from his building stories. And this is a pretty good excerpt as far as it does give you at least a complete kind of mini story. Maybe not even, it's not much of a plot or anything, but man, it's a very sad, just a character piece about, you know, heartbreak and love lost, and still that horrible feeling of how you still miss sometimes you miss people who broke your heart and treated you really shabby, but you can't help but like, oh, I hope they call one day. You know, you still deep down want to hear from them, even though you technically, logically, you don't want to ever see them again. So it's just great. I mean, if you're a fan of Chris Ware, this is just classic, great, amazingly written, amazingly well-observed Chris Ware writing, you know? And no bubble bodies, so that's nice. George Harriman's Last Drawings is written by Tim Samuelson. Almost all the articles that I've told you that we've looked at, when I haven't told you who wrote them, they're all Chris Ware. And like I said, he's a really good writer. He could write like a great journal about comics. Here's an example of the Dingbat family with an early Crazy Cat bottom strip. So this is amazing, guys. I don't know if they were the first people to print these, but basically, George Harriman died, and they looked at his in his studio, and they found the last 6 Crazy Cats, the last 6 daily strips, in various levels of completion. So the first 2 are pretty much almost done. Just need to erase the pencils, I guess. Maybe tighten it up. But this is quite a find. Very typical Crazy Cat stuff. We see this guy hiccuping. He's drunk. And is that off as a pup without his hat? I don't know. Crazy says, is that Latin? Is it Cuban? What is it? And he says, rye. So, not the best joke, but definitely Crazy Cat humor. With all of the funnily spelled words. And then these ones just have light, word balloon ideas here. So these aren't as completed. George Harriman, near the end of his life, was also suffering from a lot of pain, arthritis. So his work was becoming simpler. Little Sunday page here. Now we have an article about Philip Guston, the fine art painter. I saw this guy at the Getty Museum in LA decades ago, and I'd never heard of him before. And I remember seeing this and being like, oh, this guy looks like a underground cartoonist or something. This is really bizarre. Totally could be like from the Googie Walmer school of underground cartooning. Very bizarre stuff. This is later in life he started drawing like this. And of course there's a huge backlash because it's kind of representational, which is kind of poo-pooed in the modern art, the fine art world. But I guess people ended up loving him. And this painting probably cost $1 million. These are pretty interesting. There's something about these that are just very bizarre, very kind of enthralling. Yeah, this could totally be some weird underground. Oh, this is nice, getting a bunch of Amy and Jordan strips by McGuire. So I don't have any Amy and Jordan collections. I have them in like raw and stuff. I love this. The colors on this front, almost like a cover for this section. And if you've never read Amy and Jordan, they're bleak. It's like kind of like anti-humor, but they are like weak, almost like a daily strip. It kind of has a punchline at the end, but the punchlines are like, are just harsh. They live in this kind of nightmarish world. It's almost like they could be like next door neighbors to Henry from Eraserhead. Like it's a really bleak world with not much joy. But and somehow he makes these pretty funny. They have a mouse in their apartment they can't get rid of. And they're like, the mouse has total contempt for us. He's showing his contempt by writing nasty things about us on the window. I hate Amy and Jordan, he's writing. This is so absurd. And as you can see, he's got probably the most unique style in comics ever. I like how they tell us in the introduction, they're like, oh, he was self-taught. It's like, yeah, no shit. Here's the moral of one of the strips. The world is a horrible place filled with terrible people. That could be the subtitle of the Amy and Jordan collection. I've always loved these, though. In fact, it's weird how, it seems like everyone I know loves these strips. He gave up comics a long time ago, McGuire. He's a fine artist now. But these were, published by mainstream publishers. Back when that wasn't a thing, really. Like in the early 80s, there was a collection of Amy and Jordan. I think Penguin put it out or something. One of the big... This is just like how gnarly they are. If those mean-looking boys swimming in the water start to bother us, I'm going to get very upset. And look how fucking scary these mean boys are. They're like zombies. And then it says, shortly, don't be upset, Amy. They've injured us, but we're still alive. And it is a nice feeling to lie on the beach and take in the sun, even if we are paralyzed with fear. That's the punchline. And they look like they've been eaten by zombies. Their arms are off, and it's crazy. I really like these. Oh my God, this one, it's a hot day and the children are all hot. And Amy and Jordan go upstairs because there's red liquid leaking through their ceiling. And some guy killed himself, leaving this bloody mess. So they pull him to the window and say, his blood will cool off the neighborhood kids. And they pour blood on all these kids who are happily cooling down because of it. Now we have Nightmare Studio by Gary Panter. This, I actually didn't even think was Gary Panter at first. It's so, I don't know, it's very orderly for a comic. It's, very nice panels, very nice lettering. Gary Panter obviously can do all that, but his stuff is usually more sloppier and more kind of just sketchy and crazy. But this is just about various dreams he's had. I love this image here of a house that's impaled by bare trees growing up through it, right through the house. Here's a lot of these great dream images in here. Spear-like skyscrapers rise into the sky. A record store that sells the most mind-blowing psychedelic records never seen before on Earth. Just a really good kind of dream comic. But very restrained for Gary Panter. I mean, obviously at this page you can tell. It's like, okay. This is really weird. 1963 Cat Club, a bird's eye view of cartoonist Charles Burns' surrounding neighborhood that he made when he was 7 years old. So it's just a young Charles Burns drawing a little map of all the neighbors' houses, seen from above, so you see the cars and the parking lots, and very odd. And now we see an excerpt from Black Hole. So these excerpts that are just taken out of a graphic novel, not going to really look into or examine closely. Hopefully one day soon, I will look at Black Hole. I'll make a video for that. But as you can see, just Charles Burns. I just can't believe how flawless his art is. His inking, it looks like a machine drew it. It's just too perfect. But if you've never read Black Hole, you should. It's one of the best comics I think of all time. It's so good. Art and story. We have another one of those Ivan Brunetti biographical sketches, Eric Satie. And once again, lots of quotes from his life. And we have a little autobiographical story from Glenn David Gould. I think he's like a popular writer in that McSweeney's literature scene. And it's a pretty good story, but once again, I would have preferred 2 more pages of comics. This is a really nice Richard Cilla one. I've never seen this anywhere else, so maybe he did do this for McSweeney's. It's called Strange Question. And there's this woman, Samantha, who's just a shadow of her former self. Her friends are worried about her. They didn't know that each night she had a visitor. And did you guys notice the coloring in this? I've never seen Cilla colored like this. This is pretty beautiful to me. It's just so dark and really nice. I think it's watercolor, maybe? So this terrible little man would come through her window and mesmerize her with her gaze, and he'd ask her a strange question, which she could never answer. Her inability to answer the question seemed to fill him with evil glee and drain her of energy and will. So eventually she started to envision a large black red-eyed dog. And the more she imagined it and concentrated on it, the bigger it got and almost more real it became. It kind of looks like a rat, a giant rat though. I don't know if Cilla's that good at drawing dogs. So then the next time this mysterious visitor came into her room, she summoned the dog. And the dog rips his throat out and vaulted through the window with his body. And that night, she slept like a baby. So it seems like she kind of figured out how to get out of this dilemma. I'm pretty sure it's a metaphor for something else, but I'm not smart enough to think of it. But once again, look at these beautiful dark colors. This is interesting here. It says, I'm sorry, guys. Let me get some water. Malachi B. Cohen, but I'm pretty sure this is written by Michael Chabon. Independent comic book publishers of the pre-independent era. Number 113 in a continuing series. And what this is they're talking about Nova Comics, 1974 to 1976. Just talking about how, like how a lot of kids will have their own little comic company that they devise in their head. They usually don't get past drawing the cover, but they'll make up a name for the company. They'll have their own little knockoff superheroes that are just like Marvel and DC superheroes. I definitely have that comic in my drawer somewhere. I can't remember if I gave the company a name, but this is just an article about Michael Chabon and a couple friends, how they had one of those little imaginary comic companies, but written like in this high journalistic style where they really, depict the history of it. It's a pretty fun idea. I would love if this continued. So now we have Art Spiegelman, excerpts from his In the Shadow of No Towers. You've probably seen these before. They've been reprinted so many times. Of course, in the book, they were in the New Yorker. I think Art Spiegelman keeps sending these out there because Art Spiegelman doesn't want to make a new comic ever again, it seems. So he just keeps recycling all of his stuff. It is really fun cartooning. A little too reliant on the computer, I feel. At least I get that sense of it. But it still looks really nice. This is, fun stuff. And these are all comics and like one-page things about his PTSD. He actually lived in Ground Zero, saw it all happening from 20 blocks away. I like how he does do different styles throughout these strips. So they're kind of interesting, but definitely Spiegelman's done better. Somehow he ties them into old comic strips too. Lots of appearances of old comic strip characters. This is really good. I think this is from the New Yorker, where Art Spiegelman, he kind of is an associate editor there. And he tries to get all these great old cartoonists to do journalism, comics journalism. So this is Kim Deitch, very un-Kim Deitch-like, though, but it is really good comics journalism. It's kind of a shame because Kim Deitch is such a great yarn spinner, I love all of his stories. He's such a good storyteller. But this is well done comics journalism, where basically he was sent to this Texas prison to interview Ronald Fitzgerald, a guy who snapped one night and went on this horrible spree where he went around murdering and raping. I mean, really heinous, bestial acts. Like people who he didn't even know. So Kim Deitch is amazed to find that he's such a likable, affable-seeming guy. And not only that, but it seems like all the people who knew him, they all seem to like him. They sympathize with his victims and they think it's terrible what he did. But they're like, yeah, he was our buddy. He's always a good guy to me. So he even witnesses the death, the execution. Kim Deitch was there for the lethal injection. He even went to the funeral. And he interviews the family. He even goes back to death row and interviews his cellmates. They all tell these amazing glowing stories of Ronald. Ronald even took a shank for one of them, saved his life. So very interesting. This is a really thought-provoking piece about capital punishment. And at the end, we see the family just saying, we're sorry for the victims, but we still love him. And we see these pictures of him, and he just looks like, like a guy. Here's an excerpt from The Fixer by Joe Sacco. Once again, we'll just flip through this, since one day we'll look at The Fixer. For reals. I'm really against this excerpts. I think it's such a waste of pages. It's like watching 8 minutes of a movie. Like, hey, I'm going to show you 8 minutes of this film, a feature-length film. It's just like, I'd rather not. I'll just wait till I see the movie. But suffice to say, it's great stuff. And if it gets someone to buy a Joe Sacco book, then I guess it's worth it. Here we have David Collier doing Moving to Hamilton. Typical David Collier type story, Autobio, but with lots of little asides to history and interesting points of interest, if you will. I've never been too thrilled by David Collier's work. Always like reading it. It's like reading a good article, a very well-written article. But that's pretty much all it is. His cartooning's nice, but nothing to make the subject matter rise above what it is, But I always will read a David Collier strip. And I always learn a little something. It's rare to see his work in color. Now we have an excerpt from Louis Riel by Chester Brown. The story of the Canadian Native American freedom fighter. And one day, of course, we will look at that. So I'm not going to get into this. I do got to say, though, this Louis Riel era of Chester Brown's cartooning, I just love this stuff. So simple. It's almost like clear line, ligne clair. It's just so appealing. It looks so good to me. These cute little faces that are just little circles for eyes. Very readable. Makes me want to read it right now. Now these excerpts are good because I probably will never find them in any other format. Excerpts from the series Hotel and Farm by Ben Katchor. If you guys have watched this channel, you know that I'm a very big Ben Katchor fan. Still, I'm not a fan of his art at all. His art is perfect for these stories, but I don't find his art attractive at all. Just on its own. But it's so perfect. So I love this. This is like these one-page strips. And it starts off, there's a hotel which has a room on the 8th floor which is set on fire every Thursday night at 11 for the entertainment of the guests. And people think it's a novelty to have to do the fire drill and leave the building. The bellhops dress up as firemen. It's this total theatrical thing. And for some reason, people love it. That's such a weird Ben Katchor type idea. This is another one where in this hotel, the pay-per-view menu, you can pay $12 to watch the previous occupant of your room and to see what he did. So I guess there's cameras in there. And this guy's so fascinated by him that he stays up all night watching like many previous occupants, going back years, This is about a guy who goes to one of those you pick 'em cherry farms. And they give you a bushel, or a bucket. And by picking the cherries, he realizes he's almost feels like he's killing, like an animal. He says, for the first time, he's struck by the horrific sound of a fruit being torn from its stem. The hollow knock of the fruit cadaver as it hits the bottom of his pail turns his stomach. And from then on, he never eats fruit again. Just like some people will go to like oh, God, I'm sorry, guys. I'm having a mental block. Go to a place where they, a meat factory, if you will. I can't think of the name, sorry. Those people might become a vegetarian if you actually see how the cows are killed. This one's about how fruit cocktail has this weird mathematics behind how many half cherries are put in and how many pieces of pineapple. And it's always a crapshoot. It's always a gamble. You never know what you're going to get. So just many stories about this hotel and then this farm. We see this one where these cows are getting anxious and the farmer's just like, oh, that kind of anxiety toughens the center cuts. He realizes that there's a hot dog truck in the vicinity and he has to scare him off. And it's like, get out of here, you're bothering my cows. So I guess the smell of, their own flesh cooking is freaking him out. Some more stories of the farm. Everyone's pretty damn interesting. And now we're back at the hotel. At the restaurant one night, everyone's disturbed because this guy is actually eating the ornamental parsley on his plate. And they actually go over and tell him that he has to leave. They're like, no, it's just ornamental. It's garnish. You're not supposed to eat it. It's supposed to liven up the entire dining room. Such a crazy idea. In the supermarket, there's this type of bug that attacks labels. It likes the glue. I guess I've been telling you too many of these. I just love Ben Katchor so much. This is going to be a long video, guys. Sorry. They go back to that hotel, talk more about the room that's on fire every Thursday. So that's it for that. Now we have Richard McGuire, pretty much most famous for his short story Here, that was in Raw, and then was expanded to a graphic novel in the 2000s, many years later. This one is kind of interesting. I didn't even know what I was looking at first. I thought it was like weird computer-generated art. I was like, what's going on? And then you realize you're overhead looking down at this guy with a wheelbarrow and a rake, and he's raking the yellow leaves up. As the camera pulls up, we see the whole lawn next to a highway. It still looks like abstract art, though. And that's what pretty much all of these are. We see a guy making toast with a toaster, same concept. We see him leave in the morning. He goes to work. And all these, like the first panel, I really had to orientate myself and be like, okay, wait, what am I looking at? This is obviously a parking lot. And then these people, we realize it's just shoulders and a head. So once you get acclimated to it, you're like, oh yeah, okay, that's a guy walking. He goes to his cubicle. The day's over, he leaves, he gets in a car crash, and he dies. We see he's driven to the cemetery and buried in the ground. Oh, God. Well, we've come to this. So this is I'm Not Your Girlfriend, Jeffrey, by Jeffrey Brown. These are little Autobio strips that were made in 2003. And I fucking hate this guy's art so much and writing. I think he's a bane in the comics field. I don't know how he's made a career. All of his stuff is terrible. And I know there's a lot of Jeffrey Brown fans out there. Sorry. But he just irks the hell out of me. His comics are all kind of like this, at least the ones I've read. Because I have read a few. I'm not speaking totally of ignorance. Because sometimes I read his stuff. I read it. Because I hate it so much. I'm just like, oh, God, let's see if he's still up to his shenanigans. And he draws himself as this cute little indie guy who just wants to be loved. And he meets all these cute indie girls. And it's almost the opposite of Joe Matt, where I suspect that he's making himself seem cooler and nicer than he really is. Well, not cooler, because he's a little nebbish in these. But it's all about his problems with romance. Women don't love him back as much as he loves them. It's all very chaste. It's just, I hate the way he draws. I hate the way he writes. I can't believe Chris Ware's a fan of his. It baffles me. This stuff is crap. Sorry, my opinion. Shit, I shouldn't say that. I actually hate this new thing about it. Everyone has to say, in my opinion. And I'm like, no shit, it's your opinion. Of course it's your opinion. When you say, I like that movie, in my humble opinion, it's like, no, you don't have to say that. It's your opinion. Yeah, it's a movie. It's subjective. It's about art. So here's Julie Doucet. Once again, not best foot forward. This is fine. This is a diary comic of her. She's moved to a new city. She's working on art projects. But, I mean, I don't think this is going to win anyone over to Julie Doucet, like her dirty plot stories. You know, that stuff is amazing. It's imaginative. It's kind of grungy and dirty. Fun as hell. And this is just a typical Autobio comic, like, oh, and so I did this. And, I mean, Julie Doucet's better than most at this because she's just a good writer and artist. But, yeah, not that great. Anything in any dirty plot is better than this. Even the worst story in dirty plot. This is a really nice short story, though. Obviously not made for this anthology because it's 1996. Probably from her comic Nowhere, maybe. Or maybe from an anthology. This is The Dead of Winter. It's about this kind of that typical Dreschler milieu. Teenage girls. And this woman, this young lady is pregnant. Her boyfriend won't go with her. Seems kind of like he's a dick. So her sister goes with her to the abortion clinic. She has the abortion. And it's not like she's agonizing over it. She definitely wants an abortion. God, look at this great effect of the snow with the two colors here. Trish, they're so good at that. I also love this dream sequence where everything's getting all wonky. Look at these walls that are just buckling. So in this dream she sees a floating baby with little wings. Kind of a fetus, I guess. And it flies away, and she wants to hold it, I guess. And as she walks out into the night, and, you know, she still has no regrets about having the abortion. But she still feels that regret of just like, oh, well, she feels like the need to say, I'm sorry to the baby. And I've, you know, known women who've gone through this, and even the ones that were so sure they wanted the abortion, there always is that little feeling of guilt, of, you know, it's been pounded into us, you know. You can't help but feel it. Here's a nice Autobio sketch from Chip Kidd, and talking about his childhood. Here we have excerpts from Joe Matt's Peep Show, from his the jerking off phase, when Joe Matt just holed up in a room and masturbated all day to his homemade porn videos. This is pretty fascinating stuff. If you've never read those Peep Shows, it's the last issues of Peep Show. Now we get some Seth, and here's an excerpt from Clyde Fans. I really like Seth's art now. I remember I got Palookaville #1 when it came out, and I hated it. I still don't like it. I didn't like his like little wispy, wannabe New Yorker type cartooning. I didn't like the typical Autobio, like, oh, I work in a coffee house, or I work in a bar, you know. But he's really developed into a great cartoonist. I love this simple, clean style he has. I've never read Clyde Fans. I definitely am behind in my Seth. But I realize now that I've got to read some of this later stuff. If for any other reason, that I just love this cartooning. It's very precise, but still retaining a very cartooniness about it. And now we have excerpts from Gilbert and Jaime Hernandez, kind of interspersed amongst each other. We have Julio's Day, which had a lot of one-page, like, little stories, so it's kind of a good idea. You're not just getting a chunk of a big story. That's by Gilbert. And then we have Jaime's Locas, and of course, there usually do a lot of short stories. So if we're going to do excerpts, that's fine, you know, it's just a reprint. There's a really weird Locas story. I don't think I've read it before, where Izzy grows to, like, she's 20 feet high, and no explanation why. Everyone's just acting like it's like some minor ailment. They're like, yeah, you'll be fine. Very funny, weird one. Another Julio's Day one-pager. And now we have a multi-page Julio's Day. I think I read this, but I can't remember for sure. But I think this is the one that follows a guy's life from 0 to 100. And it's kind of segmented into these little short stories. This is a nice little ghost story by Jaime La Blanca, a true story. Look, just beautiful cartooning. The Hernandez brothers are so good at using black. I'm pretty sure every cartoonist likes Alex Toth, right? I'm pretty sure they do, though. And now we have a story by Adrian Tomine. Kind of typical Tomine type story. We see these young, cool kids. One's a manager at a movie theater. He's training this new girl who looks like a little hipster. She's got the little beret in her hair. And this manager's girlfriend brings him food. This little blonde girl is kind of flirting with him. When he gets home, I didn't mention he's Asian and she's Asian. When he gets home, his Asian girlfriend says, like, she's just your type. I know how you like those, you know, blonde white girls, and they get in a little argument. He's like, I'm sick of this shit. Stop accusing me of stuff. This is kind of fun. He has to be the beard for his lesbian friend. He goes along with her to church so she can introduce him as her boyfriend, because her parents can't know she's a lesbian. I think I have this issue of Optic Nerve. I'd like to reread it after reading this excerpt. When he gets home, his girlfriend confronts him with his, she found his porn DVDs. And the thing that bothers her is that they're all, white and blonde girls. So they continue their argument. So I can't remember if this is how the story ends or if this is an excerpt, which is annoying, like I said. This stuff is really good. This is David Heatley. Not a big fan of David Heatley's art style. But I love his, just how he's so honest, his Autobio stuff. And he seems to have a great memory. And he's really good at capturing just these little, as you can see, these are all little comic strips. All about his dad. This comic is called Portrait of My Dad. Here's when David Heatley tries to draw a little better. This is what his dad really looks like. But as you can see, he just draws them very simple comic style. But he really is just amazing. This is a really good character sketch. Just like the zany things his dad says, his weird little personality quirks, he points them all out. And you really get a picture of this guy. But also David Heatley is just, man, he just really will tell you the most embarrassing things. Things that we've probably all done, but like we'll never tell anyone else the rest of our lives, or, just try to forget about. Like he has one story in here where when he was a little kid, he was humping up against his dad in bed, think he was funny. And he's like, I don't know why I did that. That was weird. So these are all pretty interesting, all these little strips. And then near the end of his dad's life, he's got to deal with that, And he has weird dreams about his dad. I like this panel of the flowers. These are his dad's favorite flowers. And I don't know so this is 1993, so obviously was not made for this book. But it's the end. It's not just an excerpt. So it's nice that this is the good kind of excerpt I like. Well, it's not an excerpt, it's the whole story. And now we have the third of the Ivan Brunetti biographical sketches. This is about Kierkegaard. And this is a pretty good one. I like how it's the sepia tone, just the mono color. Pretty fun. And we have more of the end papers. And then, as I promised you earlier, I'm going to show off these two little mini comics we have. So let me zoom in a little. Hope you don't get nauseous. I think you can see all of it here, hopefully. So this is Ron Rees Jr. And really nice production on this little mini, like full color. And a really interesting story. I kind of like this op art thing. I'm not a huge fan of Ron Rees. Something about his, it just rubs me the wrong way, this style. I just don't like it. I know a lot of people do like it, but I don't like it. So, but the story is really interesting. We see this woman being interrogated. Apparently she's a suicide bomber in Israel. She's a Palestinian. And they're saying, why did you do this? Why did you want to do this? And she says, you killed my friend. And so he keeps questioning her. Well, how did it happen? So she befriended these guys who were kind of jihadists, or whatever you call it, fighting Israel. And she said to them, she says, she was feeling so sad about her dead friend that she was just like, I want to do it. I want to do a suicide bombing. So she goes with this other guy. They're both going to do it. And then as she got closer to actually detonating the device, she looked around and she saw these people, and she realized she couldn't do it. She said, how can I do such a thing, kill people? You know, no, it's so wrong. So she said, I'm leaving. You can go ahead, but I can't do this. And then she looked back and saw the other guy blow himself up. So she told the other guys that she wasn't going to do it, and she'd given up the whole idea. But that's when they arrested her. So at the end of the comic, she's pleading for clemency. She's like, I didn't do it. You know, I had a change of heart, so I didn't do it. But it looks like that doesn't matter. And it's so interesting how this Israeli interrogator is drawn like a weird pig superhero. This outfit he's wearing is very odd. And they basically haul her off. Very interesting. And then we have, I'm going to zoom in even more for this because it's so tiny. I love this, how it's a mini issue of King Cat Comics by John Porcellino. It looks just like a typical issue of King Cat, but it's very cute and tiny, as you can see by my hand here. I'm not a big fan of John Porcellino. His stuff doesn't really do much for me. As you can see, just incredibly simple style of art. He talks about nature a lot. It's an autobio, but a lot of it reads just like poetry, like prose poetry, where, you know, he'll be on his lunch break and he'll see a bird and he'll be transfixed by it and amazed. But frankly, I find his stuff pretty boring. A lot of people like his stuff a lot, though, so what do I know? Here's an example here. We see the Autobio comic. John Porcellino wakes up. He goes to pee, and while he's peeing, he looks out the window and sees some clouds. And that's the end. That's all you get. This guy, it's almost like kind of like Zen comics, you know? I actually think he might be like a Zen Buddhist, this guy. Think I read that somewhere? I don't know. I probably made that up. Here's the ones that are kind of like poetry. Driving home from work and it's still light out. Oxbow Creek breaks its banks. 12 garlic sprouts in the backyard. Snow falls. Birds sing anyway. And then more of this Autobio stuff. Shopping with Ma. Going shopping with his mother. Not very interesting. I'd rather see Joe Matt masturbate in his bed than that stuff. Okay, let me zoom back out for this finale, for this grand finale here. And there's no real need, but I'm going to anyway. So there you have it, guys. McSweeney's Quarterly Concern number 13 with this great wraparound cover. Like I said, it's a good sampler, especially if you don't know much about comics. These are all like, almost all these guys are pretty big heavy hitters in the world of comics, except for Jeffrey Brown, who's a heavy shitter. That was a good one. But this is it's a beautiful book all around. Even if you own all of this stuff already, just for this dust jacket, and just what a nice book this is. But I gotta say, the articles in this, short stories, are all really good, even though I would have preferred comics instead, but they're damn good. And so highly recommended. I saw this on Amazon when I was doing research. $21. The original cover price was $30. So I can't believe this is, I would have thought this would be super rare by now. Because, you know, it's no comic store is going to order this. So you're not going to find it in the back issues there. But apparently there was one copy left. So if you guys liked what you saw, go jump on that. So I guess that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. And I hope to see you next time here at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.